back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. We have a special guest with us today, Dr. Don St. John. He is a psychotherapist, a teacher, an author who has been immersed in the psychological, somatic, relational, and spiritual worlds for more than 50 years. So, Don, I'm very excited to hear more about this. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm also excited to be here and excited to be talking to you. I'm enjoying your smile and I'm looking forward to a fun conversation.
Thank
Rob,
you.
I like the title of your podcast. It's all about healing, because that's one of my major arguments, that it really is all about healing, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to heal. What does that mean? For me, it means to become whole, not like at an end place. It isn't now I'm whole, okay, I'm finished. It's a continuous process of deepening, expanding, clarifying our comprehension of what it means to be alive on this earth. And, I've come to the conclusion that all the stuff in childhood, and I'll tell you a little bit about mine in a moment, but I've reached this conclusion that all of our childhood stuff, our wounding, our traumas, our neglect, abuse, can be the stuff from which we make whole our lives. Okay? Now, I came from a family that had a good deal of violence, physical and verbal violence, and a great deal of ignorance. And that's where I began. When I reached adulthood, I was a mess. And recognized one day that I needed help. And that began a journey that's over 60 years old now, that continues to this day. A journey of healing, which I call an adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I know you were speaking about some of your childhood trauma. What happened there?
What happened in childhood? Well, my mother was, on one hand, a very devoted mother. She was present and caring. On the other hand, she had very poor impulse control, very low frustration tolerance, and the slightest thing would set her off, and she'd come across with an open hand to the face, with shoes in her hand, with wooden stirring spoons in her hand, and along with pretty vile comments about who I was or my behavior. It was intense. And my father, kind of a non-existent entity in the household. So it was a perfect storm for complex PTSD, which would have been the diagnosis if it existed back then. But that's what it was. And essentially I was internally frozen.
Yeah.
Couldn't feel, couldn't sense much at all below. So that was the starting point.
So you physically couldn't feel?
Yeah, physically couldn't feel emotion. I mean, my grandmother was my closest person. I didn't shed a single tear at her funeral. My neck was so tight that I couldn't feel much of anything happening below. Obviously, other than sexual feel, but connections to the heart, to the guts, to the ground. just were extremely weak to non-existent. And
Wow.
yeah, and so that was serious. That's serious stuff. Yet, one of the conclusions I came to along the way is even when a human being has a decent childhood, two caring, loving parents and doing all the right things, etc., they're still going to have issues. They're still going to be, they'll still need healing.
Absolutely.
And, and
So what happened? So you basically just disassociated yourself from reality for a while.
beautifully said, Robin. That expresses the main symptom that I dealt with, a
Wow.
profound dissociation from reality. And, an inability to form close relationships, which, as you probably know, is not all that uncommon. People have
Right.
challenges being in an intimate, sexual, long term relationship.
Mhm.
And I can
So
do
what
it
did
no
you
way
do?
I could do that. I mean, I'd last 2, 3 years and go off somewhere else. Now,
Right.
today, I'm 80 years old. I've been with my wife now for going on 39 years. And it's
Wow.
alive, it's intimate, it's very close. There's still a lot of autonomy and closeness and excitement and energy.
Yeah. Wow, you look good for 80. I had no idea you were 80 years old.
That's one of the values of embarking on this healing journey,
Yeah.
exploring it profoundly.
Absolutely. That is such a blessing. Oh my gosh. So you're just a wealth of knowledge. So now I'm really excited to kind of dive in a little bit more. So tell us a little bit about your psychotherapy. What exactly does that consist of?
Well, the work I do these days, and it's changed over the years, but these days I primarily work in a very relational oriented way. That is,
Okay.
when you see me and make it clear that we're beginning a relationship, and that relationship is going to be the vehicle of transformation, the vehicle of change. Because you can tell me about how things are in your life, and we this on that. But in that case, I'm depending upon your narrative to assessments and interventions. But if the focus is on how you are with me, you know,
Okay.
how willing you are, for example, to open up
Yeah.
and be real. And that's
Yeah.
hard for most people because, that's been trained out of people from very, very early on. There's this tension between being real, authentic, sincere, and parental approval. If
Yeah.
I know, for example, that my parents strongly disapprove of ABC. You
Mhm.
can make it up. If they strongly disapprove, let's say, of exuberant expression, forceful
Mhm.
expression. And every time that infant, toddler, child is that, they get that look of disapproval. Okay?
Yeah.
They're going to soon learn that that is not okay.
Yeah.
And gradually it disappears from their plethora of possibilities. It
Okay.
disappears. They lose that aspect of themselves, exuberance.
Mhm.
See? wasn't supported, it was disapproved of, even punished.
Right.
Sexuality is a big, big, big one. You know,
Hmm.
whole area gets restricted because there's
Hmm.
so much disapproval and punishment connected with sexualities. That's what I mean by it's hard for people then to be really sincere.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say so getting that disapproving look from a parent or a guardian and not really saying why or saying like, hey, what happened here, this is what you did wrong, this is what you need to correct, that kind of leaves them with no self concept, that kind of leaves them with nowhere to go, correct?
Yeah, it, it, imagine receiving a look and how it feels in your heart. It kind of sears, it's like, oh, it's painful. It's painful. And
Yeah.
often it's not clarified, as you're
Hmm.
suggesting. It's left
Right.
kind of vague and it's left to the interpretation of the child.
Yes. And that's
It could be
not
misted, it could be overgeneralized.
right, especially for a child to try to comprehend, correct? Like that's
Exactly.
almost okay. Okay. And what would you say, like, as far as relationships that are in transition, like, what is the difference between role awareness as to self awareness?
Yeah, Robin, back in the 1970s, the first public lecture, I believe it was at a Unitarian church. And
Hmm.
the title of that lecture was exactly that: relationships in transition from role awareness to self awareness. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is, when my grandparents, okay, and we're talking early 20th century, immigrants from Italy,
Hmm.
when they got together, there was this courtship ritual, however it may have been, and a proposal and a marriage. And from that
Hmm.
point forward, they knew what their roles were and they performed their roles.
Yeah.
He went to work, he opened a little fish market and went to work, and she stayed home and bore and raised 8 children and did all the cooking, all the cleaning,
Right.
and
Right.
never did they mention about how well they communicate, how fulfilled they are in the marriage. Uh,
Right.
Adherence to the role
Right. Yeah.
doesn't work today. To,
Yeah.
today, that's opened up so much that
Hmm.
real contact, real communication is important, and
Right.
self awareness is important. How am I affecting you? You
Yeah.
affecting me? What am I doing? One of the most important things one can ask, a person can ask when a person is experiencing distress in a relationship, one of the most important questions is, how am I contributing to what I'm receiving?
Hmm.
Does that compute?
Hmm. But I definitely see what you're saying, as to how am I contributing. But however, I feel that there could be some confusion there because some people are still going to be, it's like embedded in them that the role awareness is still kind of like trying to get rid of those old beliefs, especially if you were raised on those type of role awarenesses. How can they transition that? It's like they're getting both worlds, you know what I mean? So to know hey, how can I ask myself this? How can I ask my partner this? Versus this is just what living in our heads because we internalize everything, versus just saying, well, I know that they should be doing this, because that's what happens a lot in relationships today is everyone feels like they should just automatically know without even saying anything. And that's what kind of causes so many complications in relationships.
Yes, exactly. It's unspoken X, I think
There
is
you
what
go.
you're describing.
Yes.
This is
Yes, that's
this
perfect.
is how you should be, right?
Yes.
And when you're
Yes.
not that way, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed, this or that, it's time to leave. That
Hmm.
one, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know, she's not doing it the way I believe she should be doing it. And
Right.
rather
Right.
than getting down and addressing it, and I think one of the
Hmm.
most important capacities that we learn in relationships is speaking directly from the heart,
Yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
clearly, simply. I have an expectation when I come home at night, dinner will be on the table.
Hmm.
And you might have an expectation that when I come home at night, we're going to go in together and make dinner.
Yeah.
And if I
Yeah.
can say that and you can say that, we can work with it.
Right.
But what typically happens is dinner isn't on the table and I get pissed off. I withdraw a little bit. You can
Hmm.
feel it that there's less love flowing between us.
Right. Hmm. Interesting. It's still like, what would you suggest for those who just keep internalizing these feelings? Like, what, because a lot of people are afraid to be vulnerable and share exactly what they're feeling. So, what would you suggest would be the best way? Or in your journey, your long journey, what did you do to kind of start being able to express that?
Well, first I came to understand how important it is to be able to express that.
Yeah.
Even though I did not have the vaguest idea to go about
Yeah.
it. It was as if there was some foreign language that
Yeah.
no one taught me. I hadn't learned language,
Hmm.
but I began to see it. I had teachers who could model it, and I'd
Yeah.
see it, and I learned how important it is because real intimacy is.
Yeah.
Real intimacy, emotional intimacy, is when we can reveal our hearts, and it's vulnerable, it's tender, it can make us sweat, like literally,
Hmm.
literally, it can make us shake, literally, at times. Not
Yeah.
always, but at times. Somehow, at some point, it began to happen for me.
Yeah.
The system, see, my system was closed,
Yeah.
really closed. You named it perfectly, Robin.
Yeah.
Dissociated. Slowly,
Absolutely.
slowly through various disciplines, therapies, workshops, seminars, reading, etc. Slowly it began to open. And
Absolutely.
as it opened, that depth of information started to become possible. And at
Hmm.
first, when it came out of my own mouth, it surprised me. It was like all of a sudden, this foreign language that I hadn't before. All of a sudden, I was speaking, name language. And
Hmm.
there it was. And that's a that's you know in my book, Healing the Wounds of Childhood and Culture, subtitled An Adventure of a Lifetime. And
Yeah.
that's one of the profound rewards of the adventure is ability to bear one's soul
Yeah.
and feel strong and
Yeah.
know that nobody's going to trample it, because if they do, they're going to lose their head.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
You need to know that
Hmm.
there's the capacity to take care of yourself. If somebody in their unconsciousness or their meanness, if somebody tramples, you're bearing your soul and the person gives it a kick, well,
Hmm.
you need to know that you can handle that. It's essential.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's very almost impossible because you are vulnerable.
Absolutely. And then if you're not ready to be vulnerable and someone kind of damages your ego by doing that, what would you suggest in that sense? If someone did it, they decided to open up without proper discernment. They decided to open up and just they did that completely wrong, and then it takes them multiple steps backwards.
Self compassion
Mhm.
and learning how to do it better next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You just got to apply that lesson learned.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not to be, critical of yourself, because you're
Mhm.
engaging something that's very important. You're engaging something that a high percentage of the population doesn't even understand or know it exists. Okay,
Right.
so you're venturing out there to the frontiers of
Hmm.
relationship.
And
And it requires, I'm glad you asked that question, because it's important. You're going to mess it up, you're going to somehow do it wrong, and it
yeah,
calls for compassion oneself.
absolutely. Absolutely. And what are some things that those individuals who have suffered from trauma and PTSD, I'm sorry, may experience in different avenues of relationships, meaning along their journey, different ages, different stages? Like, what are some things that they may experience to kind of make them more self aware?
To make them more self-aware, to help them become more self-aware.
Right, that give them that self-awareness that I have experienced trauma. This is I'm speaking, well, when things are going, when you're actually arguing or doing anything in a relationship, or if you're just acting on impulse, what are some things that they may experience that makes them aware that this is my trauma speaking? This
Yeah,
isn't me. This
got it.
isn't what I am trying to do. Right.
Right. One of the things to realize for people who are dealing with some kind of PTSD is
Hmm.
that it affects our capacity to self-regulate.
Okay.
So, for example, in any close relationship, especially an intimate sexual relationship, we're going to get triggered. It's going to get touched, hurts our feelings, or pisses us off, or
Hmm.
something like that. When there's PTSD, the ability to regulate is seriously compromised. Meaning,
Right.
instead of just getting a little annoyed, you just blow up. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, what to an observer may appear to be a small hurt or, an annoyance takes on the intensity of that initial trauma.
Hmm.
I
I
want to
like that. I
pause.
like that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And that is an indication that, there's a deep wound. Trauma
Yeah.
means wounds, and I use the word a lot. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a deep wound that needs healing.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. But being able to regulate, that's I can tell that there's a lot of people, and even myself in the past, I have suffered from not being able to regulate my emotions or my feelings.
It's a big one,
And
and
yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead. What were you
Okay,
saying?
I was saying that compromise, our capacity to regulate, has many ramifications. For example, one of the ways that people deal with that is that they restrict, narrow the boundaries, the borders of their lives. So, for example,
Yes.
they'll stay in the same routine, they won't travel, they won't engage in new experiences all because they're afraid of what might emerge and lack trust in the ability to respond to what emerges. They'll be
Huh.
overwhelmed, for example, or
Yeah.
they'll blow up, for example, or they'll feel helpless. Okay? So
Wow.
by
Hmm.
narrowing the confines, the borders of their lives, keeping it restricted, don't leave town, don't go to new situations, don't try new things, even new food. You know,
Right.
You'll stay
Right.
with the same menu because
Yeah.
outside those borders vary. One's
Absolutely.
capacity to self is compromised.
Huh. I like that. That's gonna like make me think a lot. That's got my wheels spinning. And I know we all want what we all want in relationships are freedom and closeness. And I know that's something that you speak on as well. Tell us a little bit about
Well, that's my model for life.
that. Hmm.
Came across a couple of books by a scientist named May Wan, and
Hmm.
he said that water, by its nature, is coherent, and she defines coherence as both freedom and closeness. I'm paraphrasing just a little.
Hmm.
Autonomy and cohesion is another way of saying it, is being fundamental to water. And then I start thinking, wow, that's also fundamental to the structure of our body, our psyche, and our relationships.
Yeah.
Okay? To have too much closeness at the expense of freedom, it's a definition of codependence.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay? To have too much freedom at the expense of closeness is, a definition of parallel play,
Meaning.
meaning we're not really close. For example, there are married couples, each does her own thing without ever really opening up to each other. It's a
Oh,
convenience.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that balance, that play between real closeness and freedom is the model and ideal that I keep in mind as I look at systems, as I look at relationships, families, you know, the ideal of each child having her own sense of self that's strong, that can
Mhm.
have opinions different than everyone else in the family, and yet at the same time be really close to the whole family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in your opinion, what are some signs that others can tell I'm being very codependent? I'm too codependent on this person, whether it be a relationship, a significant other relationship, or even in their family relationships.
Well, it might be, for example, a tendency to agree with everything each other says and to,
Mhm.
not have different opinions. That's one example. Different interests, different hobbies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know sometimes through the trauma, through these different relationships, trying to figure things out, some may develop addictions. Tell us a little bit about resolving substance use disorders and addiction through emotional healing.
Yeah, that's a big question. Addictions by and large are misguided attempts to feel good. People are
Hmm.
not feeling good. In
Yeah.
my 20s, I drank a lot of alcohol
Hmm.
because how I felt day to day, how I felt when I interacted with other people in particular, how I
Hmm.
felt in group situations wasn't good. It, I didn't
Yeah.
feel good to be at a party, until my third or fourth drink. And then all of a sudden, the inhibitions would be down and I would loose. And that
Right.
felt good. It felt good.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I can go to a party and rip it up and dance and play and have fun without any substance whatsoever because
Right.
my system has opened considerably since my 20s. I
Hmm.
crave something that would make it easy to be with other people.
Hmm. And what would you suggest for those who are younger, who haven't had a chance to bring, age and, and wisdom together? What are they to do as far as substance abuse?
I think the overarching answer is to embark on this journey of healing because it's
Hmm.
all about healing, as
Absolutely.
you so beautifully state in the name of your podcast. It's all about healing and to really embrace it, to look into it. There's so many things out there. Read my book, great starting place. There are other books, reading, begin to understand what's available and the direction you want to go to.
What's the name of your book?
Healing the wounds of childhood and culture, an adventure of a lifetime.
Now, the only thing that I say about that is to me, you know what I mean? I'm older, so I'm like, oh, I'm probably gonna read that book. But to the younger crowd, um, they tend to really want a microwavable approach to life. So trying to tell them, hey, just read a book, that's like probably not gonna happen. So what are ways to reach younger minds?
Wow, I'd need a crystal ball, I think, to answer that question. Uh, I think. for example, podcasts like this probably a
Mhm.
lot easier to digest than, to sit down and take 10, 12 hours to read a book.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things I'd say immediately is find a good relationship. Now,
Mhm.
here's the challenge. When people have a fair amount of trauma, and I said most of us have at least some, but at a certain
Right.
point, it becomes really difficult to be in a good relationship. And,
Absolutely.
find a psychotherapist who works in a relationship style and learn
Mhm.
to be in a good relationship somewhere, somehow, because that's a key.
Yeah.
Somewhere we need to be able to reveal, to disclose our soul, our
Mhm.
deepest desires, our dreams, our fears, our hopes, our grief. You know, there's a lot
Absolutely.
of unresolved grief walking around in the world.
Yeah. And with your trauma that you've experienced, how I mean, I know you said you've been married now for 39 years, so clearly there is light at the end of the tunnel, but what was that transition like getting to that point when you finally realized I'm better? I mean no one's fully healed ever, but knowing that hey, I have done the work, I am definitely healing and I feel better.
I think the first stage for me was, oh my God, I am really effed up,
Yeah.
you know, and it's going to
Yeah.
be nearly impossible. That was the first stage, a
Mhm.
realization of the depth of the impact on me as an organism. That was one.
Mhm.
The next stage was, holy cow, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
I mean, look around and
Mhm.
begin to realize that just about everyone is wounded. It's only a
Absolutely.
matter of style and degree.
Yeah.
And then, whoa, this is an adventure.
Yeah.
This is like setting out for, a week of backpacking in way out in the mountains. And it's
Yeah.
an adventure. You're going to have surprises. You're going to have real serious challenges. And you're going to have
Absolutely.
amazing moments. The rewards are just breathtaking at places along the way. And you're going to realize that, wow, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. This is it.
Yeah.
Living in this moment, accepting, what at the beginning was, oh my God, I'm so messed up. And now
Mhm.
it's, oh, look, I got some more unconsciousness to work through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay, okay, let's see what this is going to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that because that is very true. I like that a lot. What are some things that you just absolutely love doing?
Absolutely love being with people in a very
Mhm.
close way. That as I'm 80 years old, I still have a private practice, smaller, of
Mhm.
course, than it was when I was 50 years old, but I don't foresee giving it up as long as I can get to my office and talk to people because I
Yeah.
love it. I
Yeah.
love hanging out and exploring with my wife the
Mhm.
dimensions of intimacy, the fun of being with another human being where it's all allowed, sex is
Yeah.
totally allowed and we can explore it. And yeah, and I'm 80 years old. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
I love being outdoors. I love
Yeah.
walking in nature. And I love playing golf. I took it up when I was 70.
Oh, okay.
Starting
Okay.
to fade now. I notice I didn't play as much. I haven't been this summer as I did last year. And
Yeah.
partly I am getting older, and partly we had a cold, wet spring and a
Oh,
blazing hot summer. And that's
yeah.
part of it. But yeah, those are the things I enjoy doing.
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah.
And what would you suggest to our listeners if you had to just give any type of advice? What would it be?
Again, embark on this journey. It's all about healing. Buy into
Absolutely.
that. Recognize that. You know,
Yeah. I
listen to
like
this
that. I like
podcast here with Robin.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. I
and
like that a lot. And what are other ways for our listeners to get a hold of you?
uh, my website, which is being reconstructed as we speak, but
Mhm.
it's up and it's www.pathsofconnection.com. PATHS, paths of connection.com.
Okay. And when will that be? I know you said it's under construction right now, but when will it be available?
Oh, it's available right now. You can, click
Oh,
into
okay.
it and, learn about our philosophy and understanding. And it should be completed in about 2 weeks, maybe three,
Okay.
but it's available.
All right. I'll definitely put that in the description as well. Did you have anything else to add?
No, other than to express my gratitude. I think
Hmm.
gratitude, it's so important to recognize what we have, no matter how little that may be,
Hmm.
but to recognize it and be thankful to develop it's an attitude of thank you, to feel that
Absolutely.
deep in our hearts.
I
On the
like that.
on the side, it's what's going to make what you have grow, but you do it so that it grows. That's paradox
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know that, but just really sincerely. Like right now, this moment with you feels very sweet to me.
Oh, really? Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I wish we were in person. Where are you? What city are you in?
I am actually in Indiana. Where are you located?
Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. Nice. Nice. It's
Always.
beautiful out there.
Yeah, it is. It is. If you like the outdoors, this is an awesome place.
Nice. I definitely need to visit there. I've been wanting to. It's on my list.
Good. Look me up. We'll go to lunch or dinner or something.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise.
Thank you. And to all my listeners, thank you so much for listening. And again, be sure to stay blessed.